So Michigan now officially projected to go to Trump. What more do we know?
Yeah, ABC is now projecting that Michigan will go for Donald Trump. It looked like it was heading that way last night. Now it's official. And I want to note, this ultimately was a very close race in Michigan. It looked like of those northern battleground states, Pennsylvania might be the closest. In the end, Trump won there by about 3 points. But this is not a big margin at all. And so when we're talking about the message that this election sent, yes, there was a rightward shift across the country. But it is not something like a sea change or a massive disruption of an election like we saw in, say, 2008 that was a total landslide, or 1992, for example, when Clinton won. We're not seeing margins like that. We're seeing relatively slim margins in some of these states that Democrats are obviously going to try to fight their way back from. So ultimately, pretty close in Michigan and pretty close to what the polls were showing us leading into the election.
So the American people went to the polls and they made it clear the economy was one of the most important issues. And let's talk about how that impacted results, clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. About a third of Americans who voted on Tuesday said that it was the most important issue. And when we're talking about the economy, a lot of what we're talking about is inflation. We saw the highest levels of inflation the country has seen in about 4 decades in 2022, all-time. Ultimately, it reached a level of 9% annual inflation over the summer. And that impacted people. Prices were growing faster than wages, so it made it harder for people to purchase everyday things. As a result, interest rates rose. And so it made it harder to borrow and pay down credit card loans or student loans or buy a house or a car or things like that. And, that may have impacted out of the whole electorate younger people under 40 trying to make the biggest purchases perhaps of their lifetimes. And we saw that actually Trump improved his margins with young voters in this election. So they may have been particularly upset about cost of living issues in this election.
Well, there's still a number of House races that haven't been called. Where do we stand?
Yeah, so as we can see, we have not gotten to 218 for either party at this moment, although Republicans are closer with 204 seats projected for them. Democrats a little bit further away. It looks like it's going to ultimately come down to the wire. And we may not know actually for days who ends up controlling the House, because some of those seats that remain to be projected are in California. Many of them, in fact, California takes a while to count its vote. But I do want to make a point here, which is that in the past 2 presidential elections, we've seen sort of generic Republicans, House Republicans, Senate Republicans, run ahead of Donald Trump, perform better than him. That's not what we saw last night. Part of the reason that we're waiting to see who will win the House race is because Trump did better than a lot of these generic Republicans. Democrats are still able to pick up some competitive seats around the country. And look, at the end of the day, whether Democrats or Republicans win the House is going to make a big difference in terms of what governance looks like over the next 2 years, at least until the next midterms. If Republicans have full control, they will be able to enact a lot of the policy promises that Donald Trump made on the campaign trail. If Democrats end up controlling it, then they will be able to stymie a lot of that, and they will be able to make their case and try to hold the president accountable. So we will see how that shakes out.
All right, Galen Druk, sure appreciate you.
I appreciate you.